This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for another episode of In Focus here on Whitewater Community Television's WCTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. First, wanting to thank Eric Van Vliet for sitting in for me last week. I did not have the night off, and actually where I was, we'll talk about. That's part of why my guest is here. But Eric did a great job with his interviews. A lot of you have followed that program on Facebook Live and commented on it. Eric always brings some interesting conversation to this show, and yes, we will be asking him back again very soon, so hopefully he's out there finding some guests. Want to remind you, we have not hit our date yet for 21 for Fun, but tickets are now on sale, and you can get those at Eventbrite. That address is up on your screen, or will be here momentarily. Thank you very much. 21 for Fun is happening this year on Saturday night, June 17th at the IU Student Events and Activities Center on the campus of Indiana University East on Chester Boulevard. You can get your tickets by going to that site at Eventbrite, and it's a great time. We're asking you to buy tickets ahead of time because we supply the hors d'oeuvres, and we want to make sure that we have plenty, so we want to try to get a count. Can't tell you what tickets cost because we don't do selling here, but go purchase and come out and have some fun. My guest has actually been there for a couple of years, and
Absolutely.
I think you've enjoyed yourself.
Absolutely.
You were getting that Frank Sinatra look on one time with the jacket over the shoulder, and you know. Jeff Plasterer is my guest here, and I mentioned that the reason I wasn't here last week is because I was at an event actually that was being held at Reed Health in the Lingle Auditorium. It was for the Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission.
Correct.
Okay, got that right. And do me a favor and just start by telling us a little bit about that group and how it came to be put together.
Okay. Our group is comprised of 5 counties. In alphabetical order, they are
You can do that?
Fayette, Randolph, Rush, Union, and Wayne counties. A total population in that 5-county area of about 140,000 people. And what we find is that we have much more in common than we have differences. And so there are things that we can do together that no one county can do on its own. And one of those things, which is usually the first thing that elected officials ask, is the question, what's in it for us? And so one of those things is to form a region and to have that region create an economic development plan that is approved by the federal government so that members of that region, and members in this case refers to each of the counties and each of the incorporated municipalities within those counties are considered members. So they can apply and access federal dollars for projects that meet the definitions of economic development for, in our case, either the Economic Development Administration, which is part of the Department of Commerce of the federal government, or the Rural Development, the Office of Rural Development, which is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So each of those entities has loan and grant programs available that can help fund projects that lead to either community development or economic development. And one of the requirements is that you have an approved plan. So our meeting last Thursday that you so graciously came to and videoed for us was the introduction of that new plan. Okay. It was 18 months in the making. there were approximately 100 and almost 200 people that participated in the development of that plan from across the 5-county area. And a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into the creation of that plan. We were lucky enough to have the assistance of Purdue University through a program of the Department of Agriculture called the SET program, S-E-T, and that stands for Stronger Economies Together. So at the federal level, the government is looking to work with regions as opposed to individual communities, and so we have moved in that direction. We actually have a history of collaboration in this region going back 25 years or more. It started with a group called the Whitewater Regional Economic Council. That over time morphed into the Eastern Indiana Development District. And about 5 years ago, that organization had some challenges that couldn't be overcome, and so that organization was dissolved. But a group of folks from each of the 5 counties felt that there was a need to start a new organization and worked for that 5-year period. That culminated in us applying to be able to participate in the SET planning process, and we were accepted into that program in August of 2015. We, at the same time, applied to the governor's office to be able to form a regional planning commission. And there's actually a statute on the books
in Indiana.
Indiana Code 36-7-7 that allows for a group of counties to organize as a planning commission. And so we have done that. We launched the organization on June 30th of last year, 2016. So we're less than a year old. Okay. But we're making significant progress, and it's encouraging. So I've gotten nothing but positive feedback from folks who participated in our session last week, and I want to thank Reed Hospital, Reed Health for providing the space and the meal. They've really been supportive throughout this process, and of course they touch most of the counties, if not all of the counties, within our 5-county region with their operations. And so it's a good fit for them, and they've been very gracious in providing support.
Let's talk through a couple of things real fast. This is a planning commission bringing in dollars from the federal government. So do you all work with in any way or against in any way the economic development corporations or groups that are a part of each one of these particular counties?
Good question. Each of the 5 counties has its own economic development organization. They're called by different names, but they serve the same function. And so the prior organization, the most recent regional organization, actually had some challenges and generated some conflict by butting heads with those county economic development groups. And so one of our missions as we put this new program together was to make sure that didn't happen. So we do not market to prospective clients, to prospective businesses that might come to the area. We provide supportive services to the local economic developers in terms of grant writing, in terms of collaboration, and we do not provide those direct services. So that's one way that we differentiate ourselves. I'm asked frequently, aren't there other economic development organizations? Aren't you really recreating the wheel
Sure.
and
Duplication of services.
duplicating those services. No, we are not. We've been very much aware of that. In fact, what are called LEDOs, the local, LEDO, Local Economic Development Organization, we have been working with them. Each of the directors has been a part of this planning process pretty much from day one. So they have participated, assisted, helped us bring in others from their communities that should be involved in the planning process. And they have, what's the word I want? They have agreed to, they have accepted the 6 goals that are a part of our recently approved plan.
Your title is that of Executive Director. I assume this group, as it spans the 5 counties, is made up of a board of directors or something that, to span 5 counties, has to be a large group. Is it all government officials?
It's not all government officials, but it leans in that direction. So the makeup of the board of directors of our organization is set by statute. I referred to IC 36-7-7. That outlines which bodies appoint how many members. The entire board is composed of 39 members. And the county commissioners in each county appoint a person. The county council from each county appoints a board member. And then for 4 of the 5 counties, the 5 largest municipalities have the ability to appoint a member who must live in that municipality. This is getting kind of complicated, but it's fascinating stuff to me. So
Go for it.
In Rush County, in Fayette County, and in Union County, they don't have 5 incorporated municipalities. And so in that instance, then, the commissioners are able to appoint at-large members to the board of directors. Okay. Wayne County and Randolph County, we have far more municipalities, incorporated municipalities, and so those municipalities each have that appointment. Wayne County is the largest by far. It's more than 40% of the population of the region. Because we have more than 50,000 population in Wayne County actually has 10 appointments. The council, the commissioners, the 7 largest municipalities, and the county surveyor has an appointment.
Okay.
Go figure.
As you have begun to put this together, and I know that there's a history of this group, but it had been out of work for a period of time.
Yes.
As everyone from the state level to a certain extent, now you're saying the federal government seems to be pushing wider, more regional groups. What have you found in doing this are some of the similarities that put these particular 5 counties together? Because some people would go, wait, if you're down at Fayette and Wayne County butts up to Henry County, why aren't they a part of this?
Well, Henry County actually was a part of the original organization 25 years ago. And as we started discussions about starting this new organization, they decided that it would be in their interest to join with Muncie and what's called the East Central Indiana.
Yeah, we found their website today as we were
Planning Group.
looking
Yes.
for, you all
So
got to get more creative with the
confusing.
names.
Well, you know, I actually lobbied for EIEIO.
I'm sure you did.
I did. I just couldn't quite figure out the right words to match that acronym. But you asked about how are we similar. Certainly agriculture is of substantial importance to all 5 of our counties. It's one of the largest employers. It's one of the largest wealth generators. And so that's one thing we share in common. We also share in common a declining population base. So there are some negative aspects of what we have in common. We have over the last 20 to 30 years lost a lot of manufacturing jobs. We are getting some of those back now, thankfully, but we're nowhere near the heyday that we were in the 60s and 70s in terms of the number of manufacturing jobs.
We showed on a previous show a slide from Michael Wilcox, who you mentioned Purdue as part of that.
Right.
Kind of his backward L showing that the 5 counties that are a part of this had all had that population decline pretty significantly.
Population aging. Well, all of the 5 counties have educational attainment, and there you see the slide, population change. So red in this case, as Michael Wilcox described, since he's from Purdue.
Be careful, think about where you are.
I know, but I'm just saying what Michael Wilcox said, and this is a quote. Since he's from Purdue, red in this case is bad.
Yes.
Now he also acknowledged, because the IU East chancellor was at our meeting last week, and so Michael acknowledged that and said that he loved IU East and everything was great. So, but you see there that what he calls the backwards L is one of the heaviest concentrations of population decline over the last. Well,
6 years.
this
That's
last
6 years, but a lot of people have said it goes back farther than that. And that's a conversation we had with the mayor, I think, last time he was
Absolutely.
here. Everybody
Absolutely.
says it happened in the last 10 to 15 years,
But
and
no,
that's not the case.
It goes back a lot farther than that. And as I started to say, educational attainment in this region is below the state average. That is also a challenge that we share in common. So those kinds of things we need to work on.
He had a slide that I thought was interesting. It's not that way in all of the areas, and that's the slide as you look at it. In some areas, we match fairly well with the state, but in other areas,
fairly
they're
well.
showing
But you notice, and our region is on the left there, and the state of Indiana on the right. The green, which is by far the largest segment, is high school diploma. And in this case, it means that a high school diploma is the highest level of educational attainment. So you look at that, and I remember quite vividly the conversations during our planning process. Oh, this is great. We've got 42% have high school diploma, and in the state of Indiana, only 36%,
34%, 36%, yeah.
And so we have a higher level of educational attainment. Well, no, we have a higher percentage who didn't go beyond high school. They graduated from high school, but they didn't go beyond. And that is the challenge, that in today's workplace, we need people who have a higher level of educational attainment, technical training, certification, not necessarily a bachelor's degree or even an associate degree, but some level of training beyond a high school diploma that makes it possible for them to find meaningful employment.
Okay. You mentioned the fact that this group has worked, and there's a couple of things that are going on, but one of the first things you all needed to do was put together a plan that was accepted. You all have done that. It's
Correct.
been called a high-quality plan,
Yes,
which is
how
very
about that?
good. Congratulations. Discuss what that means and where that now takes you.
Well, obviously it's much better than a low-quality plan,
Oh,
right?
well.
So, but this is a designation that the Department of Agriculture gives to only a select few, I'm told, of the plans that are written by regions, and so it is an accolade, and it came with a $5,000 grant, so that's helpful. But the key point about having the plan now is that we're eligible to apply for funding that regions that don't have a plan or areas that don't have a region are not eligible to apply for. So we have our plan in place. We went through the list, and if you want to talk about some of those goals, I'm happy to do that, certainly. There are 6 goals that we have identified as...
The $5,000 grant, before we
sorry.
move on,
Yes.
was it earmarked for something, or is that just kind of seed money to help you all along with continuing?
It is a reimbursable grant that has to be spent on implementation of some element of the plan.
Okay.
And in our case, we're choosing to use it on our housing study, which I'll talk about whenever you'd like for me to.
Okay, let's go ahead and go with the plan, because that's
Okay.
Obviously a part of it. We're speaking
So-
with Jeff Plasterer, Executive Director of the Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. Executive Director of this group, 5 counties that have gotten together and are working together. If you've got a question for Jeff, you can give us a call, 973-8587. Send us an email, wctv@iue.edu, or you can send a question through Twitter or through Facebook Live. Twitter is @WCTV Info.
So when we started the planning process, the first thing that we did was have a series of community forums where about 150 people from throughout the 5-county region participated. They came together and shared their ideas of what are our challenges, what are our opportunities, what would we like to see the region evolve into over the next 5 years or so, which is the time frame of this plan. And then Purdue shared with us demographic, socioeconomic, and economic data for our region. What are the employment centers? What are what economic areas, sectors have the highest levels of employment? Of those sectors, which ones are growing, which ones are declining, and so on. And so we took that information and developed a set of 3 what I'll call primary goals. Those were manufacturing in advanced materials manufacturing, biotechnology and healthcare, and then agribusiness and food processing. So those are the 3 areas that happen to be our region's 3 largest employment sectors. Each of them have 4,000 to 6,000 jobs in those areas. And so we started looking at those areas and trying to identify a specific goal to go to enhance that section of the economy. The LEDOs, the economic development directors, were very active on the manufacturing goal, and actually worked on that very deliberately, talked to a lot of employers, and ultimately that goal became a workforce development goal. So the intent of that goal is to work to ensure that there is an adequate supply of trained workers who can fuel that economy, that sector of the economy. And that's a huge challenge. You know, right now, I think last week there was an announcement that Wayne County has about a 3% unemployment rate. Other counties in the region are lower than that. So it ranges from 2.1%, I think, to a high of something in the 5 to 6% range. So what has been in the past a region of the state that has had higher than average unemployment, now for the most part we have lower than average unemployment. It's a unique challenge and opportunity.
And it's going to be an
I
interesting
suppose.
challenge, as you have,
Absolutely.
just in Wayne County, some employers that are really just beginning to ramp up. Omen Casting being one, and obviously Blue Buffalo is one that people keeps mentioning, but they're building pretty quickly
They
out
are,
there.
and they'll be hopefully hiring this year and starting production next year, as I understand, or at least start the hiring process. I think they actually have a handful of people already on board. But it will be a challenge, and certainly we need to work with, and this goal identifies the players that we need to work with at Work One, the colleges, the school systems, and there are a plethora of school systems, public school systems in our 5-county area. There are 13. So there's 5 in Randolph, 5 in Wayne, and 1 in each of the other 3 counties. So it's a significant challenge, but one that is worth addressing, and it's going to be critical to our future. So that's goal number 1, and there are several objectives, and each objective has a number of strategies. You've already heard the announcement, and remember the creation of these goals goes back a year or so, and we've worked the entire plan then into a cohesive final product in the intervening
And that's what was
space.
laid out, and we will actually have that full presentation from last week showing at some point in the future here on WGTV. It's a 2-hour plus event.
Plus.
It was an
2-hour
extravaganza, let me tell you.
But what was neat was we had 2 people who actually worked on each goal, talking about the end product and that goal. And so it was very informative. We had, I don't have an exact count, but I think about 80 people attended that session.
Yeah.
And most of them stayed for 2.5 hours
For a full
plus.
session, yes.
So it was
some interesting numbers from Dr. Wilcox.
Absolutely.
And an opening from Anthony Kirkland from the USDA?
USDA.
Was there. So all of that is part of this, and I've always found Dr. Wilcox, I've seen him a couple of times, always has some interesting statistics to put out.
He's very engaging speaker, and so that was well worth the attendance just to hear Michael talk about the local economy.
The 6 goals that came out, let's continue and
Okay.
kind of go through those so everybody
we
knows
talked
what's going on with that.
Some length about the workforce development goal. The second goal is agribusiness and food processing, and you just mentioned Blue Buffalo, which is considered a food processor, and of course there's Sugar Creek, which is coming on stream and growing, but there are others throughout the 5-county area. And recognizing that agriculture and crop and animal production has always been a mainstay of the local economy, this goal really focuses on growing those sectors, but also encouraging value-added processing, so that you wouldn't just raise corn, but you would then take that corn in the local region and turn it into another product. So you would add value to that product. One example of that would be Cardinal Ethanol in Randolph County, where they take enormous quantities of corn and convert that to ethanol, which is, of course, worth more than the corn that goes into it. So we want to encourage that kind of activity. We're going to investigate whether there's adequate commercial kitchen space available to grow the small food businesses that might crop up. A producer of strawberries, let's say, who wants to take those strawberries and package strawberry jelly or jam.
Okay.
Might be an example of what one of those commercial kitchens could do. Something that's out of the reach of a small entrepreneur, but collectively, if we can put that kind of facility in place, that many different individuals can access that and develop products.
Okay.
In addition, we want to look at the whole issue of animal production. There have been some recent events that have caused concern for animal production, and are there ways that we can responsibly produce animals on a scale that is manageable, that people can live with, where the farmers understand how to produce those animals in a responsible way, and the public understands what's going on and why it's going on. And obviously, a lot of us like a good steak or fried chicken or what have you, so we want that kind of production to continue. But how do we communicate effectively with each other on what is happening, why it's happening, how it should happen responsibly, so that farmers and others can be good neighbors and not impinge on each other's rights.
Okay.
So that's a significant challenge there, but that's the agribusiness and food processing component. The third is healthcare.
Very important in this area.
Absolutely.
Talked about the aging
Absolutely.
of this area.
And
so
as we
becomes...
age, we need more healthcare, more sophisticated healthcare, and it becomes a challenge. So the healthcare goal addresses both the challenges from the employer's perspective of how am I going to attract people with those skill sets that we need, doctors, nurses, rad techs, all kinds of associated professionals that a hospital or even a doctor's office or a clinic needs.
Even the health department has grown to
absolutely, absolutely.
that point.
And so how do we make sure that there are a sufficient numbers of people with those skills available to those employers? Reed Hospital is the largest employer in the region, not just in Wayne County, but in the region. And the hospitals, there are hospitals in 4 of the 5 counties, and each of those hospitals is, if not the largest employer in its home county, then one of the major employers. So how do we provide an adequate source of employees, healthcare providers, probably a better term for them, and so we're going to work on that. One of the things that you've already seen announced recently is a collaborative project between Wayne County and Randolph County, where they have a website that is an employment website, and unfortunately, sorry Valerie, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. Thank you, thank you. HoosierOpportunity.com. So prospective employees can use that website to see what kind of positions are available in the region. Prospective employers can use that to reach out to prospective employees, and people
it encompasses students.
Absolutely.
It allows them to go on. Information goes back to their counselors. The
Exactly.
idea of it is actually very good.
It really is, and so we're hoping that takes off, and that we can ultimately expand that to the entire region as a resource for both employers and employees. So that's just one case in point of what we hope to do through this plan. The other aspect of healthcare is to try to assist in assuring that adequate, affordable, quality healthcare is available throughout the entire region to all of our citizens. We also intend to encourage healthy lifestyles through this goal. So it's another huge challenge.
Now, the question somebody out there is asking, and I can hear it being yelled at, are these all tax dollars that you're using to encourage this activity, and should those dollars be used that way?
Good question. Good question. And let me start by sharing what our funding stream is for the regional organization. And we alluded to the membership. The counties in this case are actually the members, and they pay annual dues, and yes, they use tax dollars to pay those dues. So our budget for this year is about $50,000, and something approaching $40,000 is the dues component of that, and the tax dollars that flow into our organization. Beyond that, we're looking for other sources of revenue. One of those is through the Indiana Department of Transportation. We do transportation planning. We have a contract with INDOT to provide assistance to the local communities and counties to do that transportation planning. I was telling you before the show that I spent the better part of the last 2 days crawling around in drainage ditches beside the rural roads in Union County this week, putting out traffic count equipment. And tomorrow afternoon,
little strips across the road.
Exactly. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll be back in those ditches, bringing in the traffic count equipment before starting it all over again next week in Fayette County. So that is one source of revenue.
So you're a working executive director.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am the executive director. I'm the traffic count specialist. I haven't swept out the place yet because under the good auspices of Wayne County, they provide me with office space. So, but I do it all. I'm the driver.
You're the lone
speaker.
employee.
I'm the lone wolf. So
Okay.
It's been a lot of fun. Keeps me busy.
Cool.
But
I cut you off before you got
did.
to 4. I think goal 4 is what we're up to.
The other 3 goals are what I refer to as the supportive goals. So goal 4 is the goal is to look at infrastructure needs for the 5-county area. And we'll do that by looking in each county what kind of infrastructure needs exist. That can be roads and bridges because we do transportation planning as well, but it can also be parks. You know, it can be the Midwest Industrial Park. You know, does that need to be expanded? Rush County, actually, Rushville in Rush County, among the 5 counties, has the most recent grant from the Economic Development Administration to develop their industrial park in Rushville. So those dollars can be available, but first you have to identify what are your needs for the region. Then you have to prioritize those needs. So that will be a part of that process, identifying infrastructure. But infrastructure in this case goes way beyond bricks and mortar and includes things like do we have access in the entire region to high-speed internet? Do we have support for entrepreneurship? Is the infrastructure to support those entrepreneurs currently available? If not, what is missing? If it's missing, is it a piece that's important enough that we need to find a way to provide that? If not in all 5 counties, then maybe in a county or 2. So that's the infrastructure goal. And all of these goals, as you can see, require the formation of committees with representation from each of the 5 counties. So goal number 5 is quality of place. And so again, we start with a committee that will look at what are the amenities that each county can offer and what is lacking in each of those counties that would be important to the quality of life in that county and therefore in the region. So we'll look at that. And under this quality of life goal is a goal to identify housing needs. One of the challenges that we face is our housing stock is declining, it's aging, there's not a lot of new construction going on, and we're not sure whether the new construction that is going on is really addressing the needs of the 5-county region. So we're doing a housing study. We've been out raising about $25,000 throughout the 5-county area from the private sector, and they have recognized that they need to know for their business, they need to know what's the state of the housing stock, and what can we do to improve the housing stock. You know, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of emphasis on demolition of dilapidated housing in Richmond and in other communities throughout the region.
150 or so homes already down.
And that's happened throughout the region. So we know that we're taking down houses. We have that many fewer units, but how is that housing stock comprised? If we have 10,000 housing units, how many of them are rental units? How many of them are multi-family rentals? How many of them are single-family rentals? How many of them are owner-occupied, and in what price ranges? So all of that will be ascertained, and again, we're working with Purdue University to develop that information. In addition to that, we will have focus groups in each of the counties, meeting with real estate professionals in one aspect or another, whether it's realtors, whether it's mortgage lenders, whether it's folks that work in housing authorities, rental managers, folks that understand the housing market, how it works, and where it's at in the local economy, that can give us suggestions on what aspects of this are missing, ideas on how we can move the needle in that area. And one of the things, the interesting things that I'm told, is that younger people, millennials, don't really aspire to the same kind of housing as maybe people of our age did. And I don't mean to lump you into my senior citizen status, but for a lot of us older folks, a home of our own, a single family, a little house with the picket fence maybe was what we aspired to and where we wanted to live. And I'm told that millennials have a different outlook. They don't want to maybe spend as much time tending the yard and gardening. They'd rather have somebody do that for them. And so do we have enough of the kind of rental housing that a young professional would want to live in this region? So those are the kinds of things that we hope to glean from this housing study.
When do you hope to have this completed?
We are hopefully in the final stages of fundraising to be able to make that happen. So if you're sitting at home wondering how you're going to spend your extra money, you want to write a check so that we can get started on a housing study, please. Oh, am I allowed to say that on,
no, you're not.
on
As a
public
former board
access
member,
television?
You know that.
Hey, I was only on the board for 20 years, so what would I know about the rules?
We're speaking with Jeff Plasterer, Executive Director of the Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. I'm going to ask you a question. But besides being Executive Director of this organization, you are also a Wayne County Council member.
I am.
And have been for quite a while on the Finance Committee. Okay. In your role as Executive Director, how has it changed maybe your thought process on being a council member with the conversation about quality of life, housing stock, those type of things? Because I know from being the fly on the wall years ago, conversation about county government being involved in some of the quality of life type things, that was a non-starter conversation for some people. How has this affected your conversations now with some of your other council members, the commissioners, things of that nature?
Well, that's a good question. I think the conversation nationally has evolved. The situation has evolved. You listen to economists like Michael Hicks at Ball State, who believes that the quality of place will really be the economic driver for communities. And you know, at this point, I'm probably somewhere in the middle, that quality of place is important, but we also need to make sure we have access to building sites for new businesses coming in and ways to help them finance a project. So I think both have a place. I think it is evolving, and so we need to have open minds and look at those things. As I shared with you, the regional organization will not be an implementer of these things. So I really do have two hats. You know, I have this hat for the region, and I have this hat for my role on county council. And it's up to this point, at least, it's been relatively easy to keep those separate and to recognize where one role ends and the other begins. So that has not been a particular challenge for me. It has been interesting to, as I talk to elected officials in other counties, to learn, you know, about the challenges that they face and how are they responding to those challenges. And I think we can learn from each other without having to reinvent the wheel. If they've done something in Rush County that makes sense and that we could emulate, we can do that without having to go through a process of creating something that you know, from whole cloth.
I think that's part of the housing study. I think one
Absolutely.
of the areas is already finished, actually have already done their housing study.
Absolutely, and in fact it was Rushville. So Rush had a head start. They are a stellar community like Richmond. Now they just got their designation last year, but that was a part of their process to go through the stellar application process to get a revenue stream to complete some of their projects on their wish list and their new plan for Rushville. So that leads me into goal number 6 very nicely. Goal number 6 is collaboration. It is critically important that all 5 counties and the members of our board and the local governments at large, not just the board member, but the entire county council, the entire commissioners set, are sharing information and have bought into this plan. We think we're making progress there. Obviously, we haven't touched everyone yet, but that is one of our goals, and probably, in my opinion, the most important one. There are synergies to working together, to hearing what other people have done in similar circumstances, what worked that they tried, what didn't work that they tried, what funding streams did they access to try to do something. So there are ways to work together and cooperate for the greater good.
How do you convince the average worker in Wayne County that a collaborative win for Union City is good for him or her here?
Well, that's another very good question, and something that comes up frequently in our conversations. And if you refer back to the slide on worker migration, the one that Dr. Wilcox focused on, Dr. Wilcox from Purdue, shared with us is a regional slide. And that slide shows how many people live in this region and work outside of the region. It also shows how many people live outside the region and work inside the region.
Those numbers are actually pretty significant.
There it is.
When he showed that, I was
yes.
surprised.
So 17,000 plus people live outside of our region and come here to work. almost 30,000 live here and go outside of the region for their jobs. So there are some interesting things about those numbers. The people that live here and work outside still pay income tax in their home districts, their home counties. Mm-hmm. So even though they're not a part of a workforce within their home county, they're still providing resources to pave the roads, to hire the county employees, the city employees who are providing the services, the police officers and so on. And that's critically important in an era where property taxes are capped. What those slides did not show, and the argument that I was getting to, or the point I'm trying to make, is the migration within the region. So people who live in Connorsville but work in Rushville, people that live in Richmond but work in Cambridge City, mm-hmm. or and so forth. So they live within the region, but they work in maybe another county or another town, mm-hmm. From where they live. So the lesson from that is that we really share a workforce. Each of our counties, even Wayne County, which has declined now to something around 67,000 in total population, from its peak of about 80,000 30 some years ago. Even in Wayne County, the workforce, the population really is too small to provide the needs for the entirety of the workforce. So employers have to go outside of the city of Richmond, of Wayne County, and hopefully they can go to those nearby, which is our region.
With the employment at this moment being in the region as low as it is,
yes,
is one of the things you all hoping to find out how to get some of those 17,000 people that are working out to stay home, or to be able to get some of the people that are out and coming here to work to move here.
Absolutely. And that is really the basis, or another element of the housing study. It's also another element of the Hoosier Opportunity website that has the ability to reach outside of the region to inform people of the opportunities within the region, and in particular now in Wayne and Randolph counties. In terms of the housing study, we want to try to identify, and we'll actually be doing some survey work through employers. We will survey their employees and ask them questions about their current living arrangements. Do they live in a rental property? Do they live in an owner-occupied home? What price range is it in? Are they satisfied with the type of housing that's available to them? And then people who work here but live somewhere else will ask a slightly different set of questions. We recognize you live somewhere else. Why is that? Is it because of a lack of housing opportunities in the price range or the style that you want to live in? Or is it something else entirely? Is it a perception of the schools? Is it availability of child care? Is it just that you live where you grew up, and here's a job that's within driving distance, that's outside of the region, and there's no way you're ever going to change that?
We're down to our last 4 minutes, but how does the general public find out some of those answers, because it affects the people that live here, the people that work here. It tends to affect the economy here. And as people
Absolutely.
talk about trying to grow this economy, how can people stay up on the information that you all are getting so that they can really kind of affect the elected officials? Because those are the people that, as you say, are going to have to move the needle. And it's incumbent upon us having an informed electorate to be able to ask the important questions.
Absolutely. And so one way to do that is to reach out to me directly. Another way is to go to our website, and we are just launching this website, so it's really brand new. It's easternindianarpc.org. And we will be putting details on the website. The plan is posted on the website. We will have access to the video from our meeting the other night, describing the plan, explaining the plan. We will have ultimately have links to the other communities, the other economic development entities. Hopefully we'll be able to have a link to the Hoosier Opportunity website as well. So that will be a good way to access that information. And keep in mind, this website is not intended to be a marketing arm for any particular county or for the region. We are not an organization that is trying to bring businesses into our community. We have gotten a couple of calls, and we've immediately referred those back to the county economic development groups or to the state. But those, our purpose is different from the other economic development entities. So we are a support organization, we are a planning organization, and we will do everything we can through our collaboration goal to encourage local municipalities, the county governments, to include aspects of our plan into their own plan, because that's ultimately how our plan will be implemented, through those local governments implementing their own plans in their own communities.
Okay. Jeff Plasterer, Executive Director, Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. Thank you very much.
Eric,
we'll
thank you. Appreciate seeing you.
Continue to keep things updated so we can find out what's going on.
That'd be
Need
great.
to start by thanking our crew here tonight. Steve Michael handling camera in the studio, as always, our volunteer extraordinaire. We need 4 or 5 more like him. Eric White, intern from Ball State, sitting in with us tonight. Matt Carson, and the guy in my ear, Ryan Harris. Thank you very much. Remember, get tickets for 21 for Fun at Eventbrite. That event is taking place on the 17th of June. It's also Wayne County weekend this weekend. It's going to be in Richmond with a lot of other things going on, including the Model T Homecoming and Taste of Italy in the Depot District. This show can be seen in replay beginning at 10:30 tonight. We'll be here next week for another edition of In Focus. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night. This broadcast of In Focus has been made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you.
Watch Wayne County Connections on WGTV Channel 11, Tuesdays at 6. Each month we bring a different guest to you to promote Wayne County as a great place to work, live, and play. This month, I talk with Eric Coulter, the Executive Director of the Wayne County Health Department and Wayne County Clinic. Watch Wayne County Connections on WGTV Channel 11, Tuesdays at 6.
You are watching Whitewater Government Television, Channel 11.